If your kids got accepted to Harvard, would you be encouraging your kids to go to Harvard? What would you do?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely not. I've got a list. It's about 5 schools long of schools that I, as a father, would be willing to spend my own money if they would like to attend.
Are you comfortable sharing those?
Because a few of them, Liberty University, College of the Ozarks. It's down in Missouri. I love New St. Andrews College. It's in Idaho. That's a few of them. There's a few more.
Yeah.
I've got it on my iPhone. Everywhere I go on different events, people say, "Well, what about this school? Have you looked?"
University of Florida, maybe?
Nope.
Really?
University of Tennessee? Nope.
Nope. No, got him on my iPhone. I love that. That's the great Pete Hegseth, our next Secretary of Defense, bringing the fire when it comes to the woke insanity that pervades our colleges and our universities. It's no exaggeration to say college and universities in America are literally the front lines of culture. Now, I mean, if you think it through, every woke, liberal, crazy philosophy and worldview out there we see running rampant in our culture today first started as an idea in the universities. We've often talked on this channel about the origins of critical theory that infested our university system. And then those theories get taught to young, impressionable minds. And then the young people go out into the world and implement the ideas in all walks of life, whether they become lawyers or doctors or teachers or executives. The insanity we see among our credentialed class comes from the very source of that accreditation. So what should we make of it? I mean, yes, Trump has won the election, but does that mean that all the years of institutional rot and ideology are just going to vanish from our institutions, colleges, and universities overnight? Obviously not. So where are the good colleges, the colleges upholding the values of faith, family, and freedom? As you saw, Pete Hegseth seems to think there are only a handful of colleges he would send his children to. And you heard one of them, New St. Andrews College. And we got the special treat of having the president of that wonderful college with us today. Joining me is Dr. Ben Merkel, the president of New St. Andrews College, as well as a senior fellow of theology. He holds a doctor of philosophy and Oriental studies and a master's of Jewish studies from Oxford University, England, and a host of plenty of other degrees and accolades. In fact, Ben can talk about the credentialed class precisely because he is so credentialed. So welcome, Ben. Great to see you, having you back with us. It's great. I know you're from across the pond, so thanks for staying up for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is definitely a privilege and an honor to be here. I'm normally in Moscow, but at the moment I actually happen to be back in Oxford, so it is a little bit late out at the moment, but it's a privilege to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, man. So what's going on from your vantage point? You're on the front lines. Is Pete right? I mean, how bad are the colleges and universities in America today?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's absolutely right. I think that one of the mistakes that is commonly made when you talk to parents of prospective college students now, and you talk about basically the lay of the land of what's going on out there, and you talk about how hostile the current university is, American secular university is to the Christian faith, even like most American Christian universities, the hostility to an actual vibrant Orthodox faith. I think parents tend to remember the colleges that they went to, and they remember their own college experience. And like I can remember, I did my undergraduate at the University of Idaho, and I can remember a hostility to the faith. And the hostility to the faith when I was a student was what made me come alive as a Christian. There was like, I can remember being in the philosophy class, the history class, where the faith was challenged, and I stood up and I defended and I owned the faith in this new way. And it actually like cemented my faith. It graduated me and it made me into like a Christian man. And so when parents today hear about, there's this hostility out there, they're thinking of what they remember as this like, really, yes, it was a testing, but it was good for me. And they want that for their kids. But I don't think they realize how much the hostility that is out there now that's not what it is anymore. That is not what it is. The hostility that I faced as a student was a hostility that it taught me to rise up and own my faith. The hostility that is out there now is a hostility that makes you silence you and makes you believe that your faith is this vulnerability that's going to jeopardize the rest of your life. And it's something that makes it trains Christians to be silent and private about their faith and to eventually kind of be embarrassed and just disavow it. And I don't think they realize how how intense it is and how different it is from what we faced in the 90s or the early 2000s.
Yeah, it seems today they really make you think. They try to impress upon you how your faith is dangerous. It's a weird. It's a. I think back in the day, you thought wrongly. Now it's like you are wrong. You're racist. You're
Oh
bigoted.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
misogynist. You know, it's
And
they
I
tar
think
and
Aaron
feather
Brand has
you.
captured this well, this idea of that pivot to the negative world. Like we're still thinking of this neutral world or even a positive world if you were
Yeah,
early enough. We're still thinking probably mostly in terms of that neutral world. We don't realize, no, we're in negative world, and your faith is this thing like to be deeply embarrassed about. It's
yeah,
a vulnerability, and it's not just to be embarrassed, it's like something to be ashamed of.
yes,
And
yeah.
and I think that most of our kids that are heading off to these schools are encountering a very different buzzsaw than what we encountered.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, they definitely shame you in believing this stuff now, which
Yeah.
is terrible for an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, away from home often and like. How do you see help us think through how education, especially higher education, is really it really is the front lines of the culture war in our society today.
Oh, absolutely. I think that one of the great mistakes that we have made, the Christian community, the conservative community, one of the great mistakes we have made is that we have reduced education in our minds, especially um, college education, to being something that is primarily about vocational certification. So if you
Hmm.
think about it, all vocation culminates in your undergraduate degree, and your undergraduate degree is named after the vocational skill that you believe that you will now wield for the rest of your life. And so it's all sort of culminating in job skills. And I think in doing that, what we've done is we've somehow deleted from our consciousness this realization that education is primarily, before it is vocational certification, it is enculturation. It is your understanding of who you are, what kind of world you live in, how this world works, what it looks like to be successful in God's eyes, what it is to be, for something to be beautiful, for something to be loving, for something to be admirable. All of those things, those are elements of enculturation, not vocational certification. And what's happened is we've said no, education really just culminates in vocational certification, and that's all you really need to be worrying about. And we've basically blinded ourselves to how much education is primarily enculturation. And so in our secular universities, we go there because, well, I need the engineering degree, I need the accounting degree, I need the nursing degree because I need that job skill in order to get that job. But what we don't see is that primarily it actually was enculturation into this deeply God-hating, self-loathing worldview that
Yeah.
you imbibe, not even realizing that you're doing it, and you do it because this bait is put before you, which is this, oh well, I'll get that degree that allows me to have a job. And what happens is people believe that they are little cogs in a machine that
Yeah.
have to submit themselves to the machine and be accepted by the machine if I'm going to be accepted into that job market out there. And so you just take on all of this terrible enculturation that is actually happening. But I think the thing that we most need to realize is that education is primarily enculturation. And then after that, there are vocational skills that obviously flow from that, but it is primarily enculturation, and the loss of that, and the disobedience and not making that enculturation faithful, I think is what has upended America.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's brilliant. I put down two words: arche versus activism. This is how my brain works. So the ancient arche, the ancient the logos, the structure of culture
Yeah,
that gave it its sanctity and gave from which we get our literature and art and architecture, music, poetry, which it's ultimately rooted in worship. It seems like it got replaced with activism.
yeah,
Precisely because the new culture is this culture of work and labor and vocation. It's like the way public schools today, virtually every single vision statement, mission statement it's never about how do we create lovers of beauty, or how do we
yeah.
create a more faithful Americans. It's always how do we make global citizens, literally
Yeah.
people with no home, no sense of terra firma. You're just part of this machine, this
Oh yeah.
protocol. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I logged in just enough to hear what you were talking about before we came to this segment, and your description of like a realization of what man is and what is the religious significance of who a person is and what we are the solutions that we need in America now. I think that that is what has been deleted in our educational system. And the sad thing, this is the thing that I think is really hard, is how much conservatives, I think, are
Yeah.
some of the worst offenders on
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we think, well, I just need that accounting degree. I just need my kids to know how to run Excel or to be able to code. And if they do that, they will be okay with the rest of their life. And it's like, no, they need to know who they are, who their God is, what this world is, what they were here for. They need to know that actually more than they need to know how to code or use Excel. And by deleting that and submitting ourselves to pure vocational certification, we have, I think, deleted our obligation to pass this enculturation on to the next generation. Seek first the kingdom of God; all these things will be added unto you. We need to put that at the front, and everything else orients itself after that.
Yeah. No, brilliantly said, and faithfully said. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you're right. It is a hard truth that we are more on the right, the center right, are often the worst purveyors of this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. All I need is a good degree and an American flag, and I'm good to go. No, it's a
Yeah.
little deeper than that.
Well, I think just look at the last 4 years and look at how America, like in 2020, I've referred to 2020 as the year that America stepped on a rake. It the stupidity of what descended upon our nation and the decisions that followed from that, and how much all of that was, those were worldview issues. Those were a failure to understand who man is, what we're here for, a failure to understand the principles of the government that was handed off to us. These are deep principles. They're not these small little vocational skills. There are these much more deeper fundamental principles. And it turns out if you don't pass those on, it's not that you can't get a job, it's that there isn't even an economy.
Yes.
There isn't even a government. There isn't
Yeah.
even a society. It all falls apart when we don't take the time to hand these skills on. And I
Yes.
think that we have been too small-minded in saying, no, I just need to make sure that I'm that I'm hireable, or that I have these kinds of vocational certifications, and we've mistaken what it takes to actually build the society in which those skills are profitable.
And that the society will always take on religious dimensions, precisely because the credentialed class took on the role of the priesthood during 2020, didn't they? They became the new mystical experts that said, we have a special esoteric knowledge by virtue of our ordination. That's basically what accreditation is, with gowns and everything. By virtue of ordination, we have access to a special knowledge you don't have access to. And if you claim to be able to supersede our knowledge, that's heresy, and we get to cancel you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. I love, I did write that down. 2020, the year we stepped on a rake. I love that. That is brilliant. Oh, that's a video right there, man. That's great. I promise I'll give you credit.
That's all right. That's all right. It's free. It's out there.
It's free. There you go. Talk to us a bit about the difference between, our kind of modern contemporary universities and New St. Andrews College and their approach that's reviving classical education, the classical method.
Yeah, absolutely. NSA, New St. Andrews, we started in 1994. The whole classical movement kind of is kicked off in 1981, or right about there. And NSA 94, that's basically when the first graduates from classical Christian schools were graduating from those schools and looking at college. That's where we stepped in, and we wanted to be the next step for those for those students. I think that the real significance between us and the typical modern university, I mean, we're trying to do what college was originally invented to do. I mean, we're harkening back to that medieval model in the 13th century, moving forward, of what is the education that ought to build on that K to 12 trivium that classical education created. The thing that I think is most distinctive about NSA, at least in the context of the conversation we're talking about right now, is that in our undergraduate degree, we don't attempt to give you a certificate that applies to one specific vocational skill. We have a general degree in liberal arts and culture. There are other things that I think that are distinctive about it. I think it's distinctively and very vibrantly confessionally Christian. There are things about us like we don't take any federal money, so we try to stay distinct from that whole world. But in this conversation, I think the thing that's most unique is the way that we're not trying to certify you to perform one set of vocational skills. We look to use the liberal arts to take one student and teach them to think and to think broadly and understand the world around them. The liberal arts degree, that name liberal arts, I think is really interesting. It comes from the Latin word liber, which is the word for the free man as opposed to the hireling. The liber, I think it's funny, in the last presidential election, we had Bernie Sanders wanting to argue for free colleges. And I always like to ask, so when you say free, what do you mean? Because I think Bernie is taking the cheapest possible definition of free. I got to eat the pizza without having to pay for it. That's free. That's what we tend to mean when we say free college now. But I think a truly free college is one that makes you into a free man. Yeah. That is one who is able to think like a free man. And it's really interesting. I look at the vocational market right now, and I find that what I'm describing is far closer to what most CEOs are actually looking to hire than these specific vocational skills. In general, if I say to a CEO of a large company, if I say I can give you a steady stream of potential hires who will be clear thinking, clear, solid communicators who know how to work independently, creatively, who show up with a general moral compass, planning to, be sober, not hungover, and not planning on embezzling from you today. If I can give you that and a steady stream of those, their eyes go wide. They don't care. The vocational skills tend to be the skills that are the shallowest and most trivial. They're the ones that that the workforce says, I can teach you that. What I can't teach you is how to think and how to be how to work independently, how to be able to get along with coworkers. If you can come with those core skills, everything else I can give you. And those core skills, I think that's what the liberal arts education was originally intended to produce, and which has become increasingly rare in the American workforce. And so we're aiming at this one spot that I think college is best at producing, and which is most profitable for our graduates. I think that's what makes us really unique.
It's brilliant because I grew up outside of the Yale area, and it took Jordan Peterson to make me realize this. I'll just paraphrase him. The curriculum at and the education you get at Yale is basically the same you'll get down the street at the University of New Haven. It's the same accreditation. It's the same lectures. It's the same textbooks. It's the same course material. It's the same libraries. There's no difference. What you're talking about is a literal qualitative difference in the education. You are reading different books. You are encountering different art and music and so on, and you are cultivating a fundamentally different culture than what you would get in a typical sort of secular progressive university. Ben, who would you, if you could? If you could pin blame, I just talked about the salon.com article. You're going to have to check this out. I don't know if you've seen it yet. They're beating up CREC churches and ACCS and schools. You're going to love this one. But anyway, what they're beating up Pete Hegseth. But if you could write an article like that, who would you blame on how our universities ended up as just as so bad as they are?
Well, okay, so in descending order, we'll start with Satan. We'll start there.
Perfect.
Work our way down. I think that it's best to look, closest at yourself. Say how do I contribute to this? I think that I would say our propensity to make unprincipled and short-sighted decisions to try to
Mm.
secure the good that is right in front of us, rather than thinking long term and generational, and saying, okay, if I want to see a blessing passed down over generations, how ought I to act in this situation? So I think of things like the way the student debt, the student loan crisis is a great example of that short-sighted, unprincipled thinking, that people, these are decisions that people make um, because they're thinking about the next 6 months rather than the next 20 years. They're thinking about themselves
Yeah.
rather than their larger society, their children, their future families, and all of that. I think that a lot of the what has gone on um, in education has been the result of that short-sighted, unprincipled thinking with regard to money, with regard to the way we use envy and greed and whatnot to
Mm.
justify the kinds of decisions that we make. But it really comes down to what's going on in that individual heart.
Yeah, we just had Pastor Doug Wilson, your father-in-law, on a few days back, and he has that wonderful aphorism: the problem with pragmatism is it doesn't work.
It's true. It is true.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so true. Um, Dr. Ben, I'm sure we have some students, we have parents, grandparents who are just discovering New St. Andrews, watching us here. Obviously, they were going to want to get some information on your college, and also there's a lot of people I'm sure who want to help your college. And seeing that you're one of the last bulwarks of the true, the good, and the beautiful and education in America today. So, where can they find you, and what can people do to help with the mission of New St. Andrews?
Yeah, absolutely. So nsa.edu is the webpage. I definitely would encourage people to head there. I think the two things that I would ask for would be, first of all, send us your best and your brightest. Would love to see those students that deserve an education like what NSA is giving. To be clear, I don't believe that college education is for everyone. I think that colleges tell a lie when they pretend that they are the entrance into the workforce and that you won't be able to have a successful career if you don't get a R certificate. I think that that's a lie and it's not helpful. So I think that NSA is the right choice for a select few, but I think that there is a best and brightest out there for whom we are a fantastic next step to prepare them for the rest of their lives, the enculturation that I'm describing. And I would say definitely, like, this is a moment. I'm not normally pushing hard on the fundraising piece, but we're in a moment where it has become particularly strategic. We've doubled our undergraduate enrollment in the last 4 years. And if you know anything about a college, to double your undergrad in 4 years is kind of unthinkable. And particularly if you think about the last 4 years, what's been going on in every other college, it's been insane. I would joke that I had a full head of hair 4 years ago. It's intense. Scaling up is intense. We are in an intense moment of building. We're building buildings. We're also in a legal fight with our city who doesn't want us to exist. And so
That's right.
we are paying lawyers. We are buying buildings. We're doing a lot of work. And I think that there is definitely there's definitely a fundraising need at the moment that is now more strategic than ever. I would love to see people consider making a good gift to get us through these interesting years. I've told the admissions team we're going to cap the incoming freshman class for a few years because we've got to catch up with ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a wonderful,
what a nice problem to have.
It's a wonderful thing to be struggling with, and you should be so lucky. Is one of I understand this is a great complaint to have, especially as I look at other colleges and what they're doing. But I do think it's a confirmation that what we're doing is extremely strategically important at this particular moment, and I think that it makes a gift here extra meaningful.
Oh, gang, it's so awesome. I've known of New St. Andrews for years now, 2 decades, and I've had several of my students go off and study there. Every single one of them absolutely loved it. You have to go out and visit and check it out if you have college age kids. It's just gonna blow. You've never seen a place quite like this. You're gonna absolutely love it. Moscow, Idaho. So click the link. Yeah, it's amazing. Click the link in the description below, and if you feel called to, please help protect the pillars of faith, family, and freedom in the country by donating what you can to New St. Andrews as they train up the next generation of this country. They're absolutely amazing. And you are absolutely amazing, Dr. Ben Merkel. Thank you, sir, for taking some time with us, and enjoy Oxford.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, man.